Good evening, everyone. I wonder if you can hear my voice. Can people just type at the chat room to let me know whether you can receive my voice? Thank you, Charis. Thank you, Wingfei. Wonderful, Marcus. Okay, I'll see if I can start my webcam. Hello, everyone. Can you see me on the video? Great. Good evening. I'm the tutor for this evening. I'm Paul Chen, and I'm a practicing barrister. Before, I was a CPE student some years ago, and I fully understand what you have been going through after days of work and have to come over and attend this particular tutorial. It is rather difficult to do it online because normally I prefer my student to be more interactive, and when we have a chance to be at a physical classroom, it tends to work out well because we will have a lot more exchange in conversation. But here, unless you're willing to talk, or if not, you feel that you prefer to type, I would encourage you to type at the chat box to raise any questions or difficulties if you encounter. Let's say if you don't hear my voice, or if you have any particular points that you want to raise in respect of the topics that I'm going to cover, not only for this evening, but for the next few tutorials in general, okay? Now, this evening, we're going to talk about plagiarism. This is a very important topic because the offense of plagiarism is very serious. And I would like to ask all of you, okay, I would presume that all of you will have some sort of knowledge about plagiarism. Can I ask some of you to perhaps share with all the others what you think plagiarism is all about? There's no right or wrong answer. It is good that you start to do the thinking process, and afterwards, when you hear all the presentation materials that I'm going to go through this evening, that will help you further consolidate your thoughts as to what the rules are and how you can avoid falling into the pitfall of it. Okay, can anyone volunteer to let me know what you think plagiarism is all about? Any particular contribution from anyone? Remember, there's no right or wrong answer, and also there's no prize for it. The only prize is that you further consolidate your knowledge, and you're not going to commit that sort of error in the future, which can be fatal. I'm going to explain to you why that is actually having a really, really detrimental effect if you're not careful. Okay. Okay, I see that. Good. Some students put down is to copy the work of others. And another one is saying is directly copy something from others. Okay, we are moving on. Okay, work of others or something for others. In a way, you have covered part of it. Okay, Marcus, give it a try. Okay, you want to say something even more? So far, we have copying the work, copying something from others. Any particular contribution? Just put in whatever thoughts you think about, okay? Charis, very good, without acknowledging the source. Marcus, wonderful, referencing sources without proper citation, okay? So in a way, and put in the source that you did not read. This particular class is more sophisticated. I have to congratulate all of you because you seem to be one of the classes that have come up with more than 4 inputs, okay? And I see some interesting thoughts about what plagiarism is all about, and they are all right. And one thing is that I have seen students putting down is copy the work of others, copy something of others, but means it's more than the work. So the work can cover a lot of things. There's a wide range of it, which I'm going to go through. And another student, Shari, said, without acknowledging the source. And Margaret said, referencing but without proper citation. So there is a specific way to do citation. And if you do not do that properly, that can fall into the trap as well. And Margaret very nicely ended up the contribution, which is you quote something that you have not read. This is a very important point, okay? So I've been told that if I switch on the camera and when I do the presentation slide, I might eat into the bandwidth. So bear with me. What I'm going to do is I'll come back with the video of myself talking to you in due course. And now let me move on with the presentation and I'll come back again, okay? Now, plagiarism, what is that about? Plagiarism is, oh, sorry. This is something that I want to show you later. Very important. Now, plagiarism is not only about copying the work of others. It is also about the intangible ideas. Okay, so it can be tangible, like physical work, materials. It can be intangible ideas, concepts of others. And then acknowledgement. Okay, acknowledgement, it is not only just acknowledgement. It is an adequate acknowledgement. So there is a quantitative element here, which says the adjective adequately acknowledging. Adequately is very important. Okay. Now, the effect of plagiarism is quite easy to be told. What you have to do is you go and show your piece of dissertation or assignment to a friend of yours, to your relatives, to your colleagues, and ask them to read that. If you have not put down any sort of reference to anyone, and what you're writing are actually ideas or materials of others, and if your colleague, relatives, or friends said, what a wonderful piece of work of yours, and they think that that is your work, that is already plagiarism. Okay, if you did not adequately acknowledge that. So it is important to bear in mind, which is the test of what we call the ordinary man's test or women's test, which is ask any ordinary person to look at it. And if they have a reasonable impression that you are writing something and you claim to be writing that by yourself, and if you have not actually acknowledged the source where you have copied or incorporated from, that is plagiarism. Plagiarism is very serious because that is a theft in the academic world. That's why we call it the academic theft. And remember, theft that goes to the element of a person's integrity as well as honesty. So the university does not tolerate any sort of plagiarism because this is an academic theft. As well, we would regard that as academic misconduct. It is a misconduct because you are in a way cheating. You are cheating the readers that you are saying something and claiming it to be your own piece of contribution. However, the person who originally wrote that should have been attributed with the credit of it. Likewise, when you are the author of the work, you would also like other people to give you credit for what they have put down in the article by using ideas of yours to develop their ideas further. Okay, this is the whole essence of the education. And that is why by doing plagiarism, it is against the purpose of education. And the purpose of education is to encourage creativity amongst academic writers, is to reward people with originality. So when imagine you are doing the research work, and if you put in new ideas or you have new creative thoughts, if other people are just going to claim your work as their work, you will not feel contented with it, would you? Okay, so in a way, is to pay tribute and give recognizable credit to other people who have done the hard work for you to develop further. Okay, and if everyone is not abiding to the rules of against plagiarism, then no more creativity in the academic world, because no one wants to put up new ideas. Anytime when you put up a new idea on a particular journal or on the internet, everybody will copy it. No one will have to give you credit. Who is going to do that? No one is going to do that. Okay, and you don't want to do that either. You don't want other people to do that either. Okay, and overall, if you commit plagiarism or if you do not properly acknowledge other people's work, the examiner will view you as a person who do not understand your subject matter. You do not understand your subject matter in the sense that you don't understand what plagiarism is about. And if you are just copying everything and not acknowledging, you are just copying things. You don't have your own thoughts to it. Okay, but to the very basic ground rule, you should adequately acknowledge what people have given you the ideas and thoughts from, whether they are published or not. I'm going to come back to that point at a later stage. Okay, and as I said before, it is a serious offense and it is a disciplinary offense, because you might end up getting a 0 mark for your whole assignment. And that is important, especially if you want to move on further. 0 mark is one of the punishments. Another possible disciplinary action is to call upon you to appear before the disciplinary committee of the MMU, where you'll be summoned to attend and to defend yourself against plagiarism. And that disciplinary action may lead you to be perhaps suspended, expelled, or leave a bad record on your academic history. That would have a repercussion if you go further in the future to apply to another university, when you need to apply for reference, or when you have to get some sort of work reference from the academic world. Okay, so it is not something that you should commit, and the cost of doing that is so substantial, and it's not worth attempting doing it. And with all the materials I'm going to go through tonight, you can avoid that pitfall easily. Okay, now let me share with you one of the comments. It is important to mention this in the very beginning of my class. I would urge all of you, when you see all these PowerPoints, okay, references, please do not circulate. They are entirely for the educational purpose of this class. And this is also for illustration to help you understand the particular concepts I want to convey to you, not in this particular case, not to commit plagiarism. As you can see, this particular source of knowledge is from Danny, and Danny would like me to share with you on the strictest confidence that you will not share with anyone. Okay, please bear that in mind. This important rule. Now, in this particular case, this is about someone who has plagiarized on the Hong Kong constitutional law assignment. Let me ask you. I understand that you are going to have an assignment for Hong Kong constitutional law. Am I right? And that would be sometime for submission next year, early next year. Can anyone tell me whether that's right? That's still the case, or and when that would be due? Can someone just let me know on the chat box if you know when the Hong Kong constitutional law would be due? Now, you'll be due in March. Thank you, Petrus. Very important, okay, you have time. So learn about all these plagiarism rules so that you won't commit it. And especially, I want to ask you about this Hong Kong constitutional law because Danny is an ardent examiner on students for the compliance of the plagiarism rule. And tonight you see the examples are being quoted mainly from Hong Kong constitutional law assignment, because I know this is something that you have to do. And then you have to pay attention to, okay, because Danny and all the other examiners which Danny has dedicated upon, they have very strict rules on plagiarism compliance. Okay, in here, this particular student received this comment from Danny. Okay, Danny says, "I'm writing to you in relation to the investigation of the alleged plagiarism, in relation to your Hong Kong constitutional law coursework assignment. The Board of Examiners met on the 10th of July in accordance with the MMU regulations for the taught postgraduate programs and also the undergraduate taught programs, section 16.24, the university imposed a penalty of the 0 mark for your assignment." So this particular student actually failed with no marks at all. This student is actually lucky. It is only a fail mark. Remember, I said the repercussion can be even worse because the student might be summoned to the disciplinary committee, and that might end up with even more grave consequences like being expelled or left a bad record or suspended. Okay, so it is not something worth trying. Okay, 0 marks is a big step back on your progress in studying further for law, because I believe Hong Kong constitutional law is one of the core subjects that if you want to move further, and for those students who will need to move further into the PCLL arena, this is a core subject that the 3 teaching universities will examine, and your marks will be counted quite heavily towards the admission process. So having a 0 mark for your constitutional law assignment is going to be detrimental. Okay. All right. Now, the way that we are going to do to prevent plagiarism is, as with all lawyers, we have tests. And in this particular case, I will urge you to look at these 2 limb tests. Okay. Always ask yourself, okay, the question, limb number 1. For your work, have you been copying the textual materials, the written materials, or have you been willfully using other people's idea or data, whether or not those materials, ideas, data, concepts, thoughts have been published or not? Okay, so you can see it's a very wide net that you might be caught. It can be tangible, it can be intangible, it can be published, it can be unpublished, it can be obtained directly, it can be obtained indirectly. So this is a very wide range of sources. And in the next few slides, I'm going to let you get a feel of what that would be encapsulated. Okay, don't worry. And if you carry out the first limb test, limb number 1, and you think, okay, I have actually copied the work of others, or I've incorporated idea of others, then you move on. Have you adequately acknowledged the source? Adequately acknowledged. I emphasize the word adequately, because just acknowledging without proper acknowledgement is not adequate. As one of the students pointed out, without proper citation is one of them. And if you just acknowledge it in a way that is not one of the prescribed way to do citation, that is also called not adequately acknowledging it. Okay, and I'm going to go through that later. Okay, so far, bear in mind 2 limb tests. 1, ask yourself, have I copied someone's ideas, thoughts, physical materials, or intangible materials, or or it could be something that have been published or not even published. And if I have done so, have I adequately acknowledged the source? If I did not do that, if I continue to persist further in my dissertation, I would have fallen into the trap of plagiarism. All right? So far, any question? Good, no question. Now let's move on to limb number 1. Now you might ask me, it could be a very wide range of materials. Is that right? Correct. And limb number 1, we are talking about any use of ideas or materials. As you can see from my list here, it says it can be any sort of copying, any form. You might change the tense of your description. You might change it from direct speech to indirect speech. You might remove most of the words and implement your own words, or you might totally use your own words, but the whole idea still belongs to others. As long as you do not adequately acknowledge it, you are caught. Number 2 is every time when you use a source, you must footnote that. Okay, as one of the students pointed out, as long as you have used the source, you must have footnoting. And when you have a footnoting, you must have a mirror brother at the bibliography section. So it goes hand in hand. Footnote, bibliography. It cannot go without one another. And can anybody tell me if you know the difference between a footnote and a bibliography? Anyone would like to contribute your idea in the chat box? Any difference between footnote and bibliography? Now, okay, go ahead. Petrus, you have input, I can see that. Go ahead, give it a try. Okay, there's no right or wrong answer, remember. I would encourage my class to participate. It would be nice to see you in person, but sadly, it is not permissible here. So I would encourage you to just type in and start to be interactive, because that way, when I was a CPE student, I tend to interact quite a lot with my tutors. And those students who tend to interact and start to do the thinking process, you tend to get the ideas quite quickly, and you can consolidate your thoughts better, okay? Now, footnote, I would, let me ask another question. Do you think that if we have one footnote, we have only, well, let me rephrase the question. Do you think the number of footnotes must equate the number of bibliography entries? Anyone think that they can be different? Okay, you just have to say something, yes or no. Okay, let me have a look at some of the students' comment. Footnote is in the citation in the same page of the content. When you cite, while bibliography is on the last page of the work. Excellent. That is one of them. Bibliography should be the ultimate source of reference, and footnotes should be the concise form or exact part from those ultimate source. Very good. Footnote is just a nice and precise way to direct people to the source of the of your materials. Okay, so it should be quite concise, and you should follow the citation system, which the MMU uses, the OSCOLA citation system. And thank you, Margaret, you put that down. You don't have to be the same number. When you have a footnote there, you don't have to have the, well, when you have one footnote, you must have at least one bibliography. Okay, if you have footnotes without bibliography, that is not right. Remember the Mirror Brothers rule. A footnote must have one bibliography at least in the at least one entry in the bibliography. But you might refer to the same source, okay, several times in the footnote. That means you might have more footnotes than the bibliography, but then all these footnotes of the same kind will still be referring to the same source in that bibliography. It is just a different page or different paragraph of the same source. Okay, so in terms of source-wise, the footnotes, the source of the footnote must have the same source in the bibliography. All right, and also when there is a possibility where you can have more than one bibliography entries than footnote. That is when you have read some sort of background reading. And that equips you with the necessary information to move on further with your dissertation, your article, your assignment. And because of the word limit, you go straight into the discussion of the examination topic. You don't find it relevant to say where you get the background information from, okay? Because you will have already gone into the second level, let's say the primary sources or other academic authors, okay? Let's say the background materials of the Muslim community in Egypt. You want to read about what happened in Egypt. You want to read about the Muslim community, the Islamic law there. Once you know that, you might go into the question. The question might ask you about a particular interpretation of the Islamic law. Okay. And when you have read something where you do not find it necessary to quote in your footnote, but you want to let the examiner know that you have read those important background information, you put that down in the bibliography. Okay, understood? So you might have entries in bibliography where you will not have a footnote there. But at least if you have one footnote, you must have one bibliography entry. Get that right. So you have to develop that important discipline. Make sure when you have a footnote, you must have at least one in the bibliography. You might have many footnotes, but if you are actually referring to the same source, that same source would appear as one entry in the bibliography. Okay? Another thing I'm going to mention is that, as one of the students has correctly put down, I think it's Margaret, you correctly put down, if you have not read anything, don't fabricate that you've read it. Don't pretend that you've read it. And don't write that down in the footnote that you've read it. Because if you do that, that is already plagiarism. Likewise, if you have not read anything, don't put it down in the bibliography as well. Because if you do so, then that is also plagiarism. And the worst thing is, in the bibliography, okay, if you put a lot of things over there, you give the examiner a legitimate expectation. A legitimate expectation in the sense that he or she would have expected you to have covered so much materials. And when you start writing in your dissertation thoughts, that might lead the examiner to think, hey, how come you come to that thoughts? If you have read through what you have proclaimed to have done in your bibliography, that shouldn't have happened. Okay? You don't want to cast that doubt on the examiner unnecessarily. Okay, I recall in one incident that a student put down a lot of things in the bibliography, and the examiners wrote back and said, with all this time and efforts that you put down to have read all these materials as declared in the bibliography, I just wonder why you have these thoughts, or why you have not thought about this in your analysis, which is so plain and simple if you have done all this work and reading in the bibliography. Now, so there is something that you have to strike a balance, okay? You have to be quite careful with the number of entries in the bibliography, but you would definitely must have one footnote. If you have one that you've read, you put that down, and that must have a corresponding bibliography entry there. Okay, that is the basic discipline that you must establish. Okay. Now, bibliography and footnote referring to sources, and it does not matter what the nature of the sources is. Earlier, we mentioned about it can be a very wide range of materials. It can be books, okay? It can be articles. It can be some sort of dissertations, or it can be your friend's contribution, or your friends' articles that they've written for their assignments abroad at a university abroad. And remember, the Turnitin system is very smart. And it is being deployed by most of the universities abroad and 100% of the universities in Hong Kong. So there is a very high chance that if you say, I have a friend who has done this and I am grateful for my friend who told me about certain ideas, I incorporated that ideas in my work, think about it twice. Because your friend would have submitted his or her work in the Turnitin system, and if you do not officially adequately acknowledge the source, you will be caught. So the good intention of the friend could lead to detrimental consequence for yourself if you do not adequately acknowledge the source. So be careful. All right. Now, further, it can be a report. It can be a test report. It can be a law report. It can be a table in a particular journal, in a particular law assignment. It could be a memorandum in a conference. As I said, it could be a student assignment. It could be a teaching materials. Okay, think about it. Let's say in the in Danny materials. Okay, Danny might be referring to some of the key concepts that he would have incorporated in his well-known book on Hong Kong constitutional law, or he might have incorporated that from other learned speakers where he would have acknowledged in his book. And if you just copy and paste that and do that in your own work, be careful, because that may be the work of Danny in his book. And if you did not adequately acknowledge his contribution to this particular idea, you will be caught too. Likewise, if you have used another professor's work in a speech, that professor might have his contribution being published in other papers, or other people might have used that ideas in another paper. You'll be caught too if you did not adequately acknowledge that source. The range is so far reaching. It could even cover graphics. Can you imagine that? It could cover photographs. It could cover videos. It could cover audio recording. So that means that if you have an interview with someone, that would be covered if you did not adequately acknowledge. Or if you listen to YouTube interviews, any audio recordings, video recordings, online, offline, they will be caught. Anything on the internet, if it belongs to the ideas of other people, if you did not adequately acknowledge, you will be caught too. So the net is being casted really widely. So beware. All right. And as I said, if you just adopt it, if you say I just adopt the idea, but most of the time I'm using my own, I'm building upon it. Okay, it is only one or two parts of it that I'm incorporating others. Still, you must adequately acknowledge. And if you really want to use some of the key phrases, you know, sometimes in the academic world, people invented new phrases. Okay, and if those new phrases are something that you think, okay, I want to use these new phrases, this new idea of others, put that in quotation. Okay, I'm going to talk about that next. And anything, remember, publish or not, it doesn't matter. You will still be caught if you did not adequately acknowledge it. Okay, let me show you an example. But up to now, are you okay? Are all of you okay? Good. Now let me go to the next example. No. Okay. The next example I'll go for after the limb 2. Remember, limb 1 is you ask yourself, have I incorporated, have I used other people's idea and thoughts, materials, whether published or not, physical or tangible or intangible or virtual, Okay. Now you ask yourself the second question. Adequately acknowledging. What does it mean? Very important. As I mentioned before, if you really want to quote someone's word verbatim, that means word by word, put that in single quotation mark. Okay? Let's say if you see a particular paragraph, I cannot use my own words because every single word in this particular paragraph, it is so important. It encapsulates the full essence of it. And if I detour from any of the wordings, I'm not capturing the whole essence of it. Put that in quotation mark, and then do a footnote, okay, and do a bibliography, a mirror brother, and that particular footnote must put down a brief citation of where the source is according to whichever citation system or scholar citation system which the MMU law faculty uses. And likewise, the scholar citation system will also tell you about how you can quote full citation in bibliography, and you do that as an entry in the bibliography. One very important point I want to remind you about the assignment is always check with any of your teachers or subject tutors. Ask them, if I have to submit my assignment, would the footnotes be counted as part of the word count? Can I ask all of you, do you remember for the forthcoming Hong Kong constitutional law assignment, what is the word count? Does anybody remember? What is the word count for the forthcoming assignment? Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. I've got confirmation from 2 students, 3,000 words. Thank you very much. Now, 3,000 words. Remember, if the footnote words in the footnotes are counted towards them, that means you have lesser words to write in the context of your submission. So be careful. That's why it is a very important thing. I always urge my students, whoever attended my class, I urge them, go and check with different subject teacher, because some of them are different. Some of them will say that is not counted. All right. So you can write whatever. You feel free to write whatever in your footnote, as long as that refers to helping, acknowledging the source, as well as giving people a direction of where the source is. But then, bear in mind one thing. The footnote is only there for you to give references and to pay tribute. It is not there for you to bypass the word limits of your assignment. So even if your teacher says to you, your assignment is 3,000 words and the footnotes will not be counted as part of the word limit, it is not giving you an excuse to say, okay, if I am running out of words in my in the context of my assignment, I'll just put that down in my footnote. That is not allowable. And that would have a bad repercussion on the marks too. Because, as I've said, footnote is there only to pay tribute and to give people the direction for referencing. It is not there for you to bypass the word limits, for you to elaborate your thoughts in ways where you would not be permitted to do so in the main context of your assignment. Okay, otherwise it would be unfair to students who abide to the rules and do the word count for the context and subject to the conciseness requirements of it. Okay, I hope you can appreciate this point, and do double check with the tutor, because sometimes some will say word counts include footnotes words. Word count, some of them will say word count does not include footnotes words. And some of the tutor might say they will not do word count, they will do, these days they will do character counts. That is even more demanding. Okay, character counts is even more demanding. Okay, but I believe that is not appropriate for the Hong Kong constitutional law assignment, but bear that in mind in your forthcoming, in your future academic pursuances. Always check. Don't make that assumption whether it will be countable or not. Always double check that. Okay, very important to remember. Now, let me illustrate what you should do with an example. Okay, here, I'm going to look at the Hong Kong Law Journal, volume 46, page 609. Let's say if I have looked at this, the learned author Wen Shuiying, very learned author in terms of international law as well as for international banking law, okay, for China. I have this particular paragraph where I have got from his law journal. It says banking institutions are to lawfully and reasonably collect personal financial information relevant to business transactions. They are prohibited from selling or providing the information to third parties. They are also prohibited from using the information for other marketing activities if the client objects to the use. Okay, I ask myself, am I going to copy the whole thing? If I'm going to copy the whole thing, do what I do at the bottom. You can only copy that because you think I cannot replace any of this to represent the meaning of it in my own words. And you put that in, you can see in my green remarks, you put that in single quotation, and afterwards you put down Shuiying Wen, 46, volume 46, Hong Kong Law Journal, page 609. Okay, but Oscola has a very precise way to quote this. Okay, check the Oscola citation system for the citation. Okay, you will have to use the particular requirement of the Oscola citation system in your citation footnote citation. Okay, and then once you have done that, remember what I said. You must have a mirror brother. Do an entry in the bibliography immediately. Okay, don't leave it to the end, because at the end, if you have something like 100 footnotes, you might miss out this particular exercise, and it's also going to be time consuming. Remember, CPE students, we are very pressurized with time. We have work to do, so you want to save the time. Whenever you do footnote, immediately have the good practice, do a bibliography there, so you are home and dry. You don't have to think about it afterwards. All right. If you really want to quote this, put that in quotation marks. And remember, if you only want to quote a particular phrase, okay, let's say you want to say prohibited from selling and providing the information to third parties. If that is a very original thoughts of some author, and you have your other words, you write your other words and then you put prohibited from selling or providing the information to third parties in quotation. Okay? So anything that you pick from others, any words that you directly pick from others, you must give proper acknowledgement, and you must give proper acknowledgement in quotation mark. If you are capable to transform everything without using any of the words, you can do so. So you don't have to put quotation, but still, remember, you are just being skillful in transforming something totally, represented totally in a literate way. But the idea still belongs to the original author. Still, you must do a footnote to acknowledge that author in the footnote and the mirror brother entry in the bibliography. Understood? Okay. Next. Now, I highlight sources that you have read. Anything that you have not read, I would urge you once again, don't put that down. I'm going to show you an example afterwards why I highlighted again and again, okay? And one of the students have already learned this, and I'm glad that I see the remark there. You should only put down in your footnote as well as in the bibliography sources that you have read. If you do so with anything that you have not read, that is plagiarism. Okay? Likewise, when you do the mirror entry in bibliography, you must have read that. Even if you have entries in bibliography, just to highlight that you have done the background materials and you did not have a footnote because you don't find it relevant in your arguments, in your dissertation, still, that entry in the bibliography must be something you have read. Otherwise, don't put it there. A very important questions that often pop up in all these plagiarism tutorials that I've taught, not only for this university, but for many other universities. Students often ask me, how many footnotes do I need? Okay, as Petrus and the other student have kindly confirmed that you're doing something like 3,000 words for the Hong Kong constitutional law assignment. Okay, I can, from my past experience of looking at the work of others, for an assignment of about 3,500 words to 5,000 words, okay, I would expect students to put in at least 50 plus footnotes to 100 plus footnotes. Okay. Any footnotes less than that for less than 50 for 3,500 words assignment would be very insufficient, because there is a certain degree of work that you should have done in order to present well and to properly prepare yourself for that. Okay, so remember this this rough idea. This is not a hard and fast rule, but somewhere in between 50 to 100 plus for an essay of 3,500 to 500 words would be a de minimis criteria. All right, and remember, as I mentioned, no matter how good you rewrite your materials, it is still plagiarism if you do not adequately acknowledge that. Okay, and as long as you have used someone's ideas, materials, and if you did not have a footnote there in the same paragraph and a mirror entry in the bibliography, you'll be caught. So far, okay? Good. Now, let me show you this particular example. Now, let me ask you a question. May I draw your attention to the top right-hand corner? You would all see a mark there. This particular student got a mark of 38. Can someone let me know what you think? What sort of classification would this student get? Would that student get a 2-2, a pass, or a fail? Can someone let me know what you think? 38 marks, what do you think? Okay, it is important for all of you to know about the marks. It's important, okay? Because as thanks, Petrus, it's a fail. 39, I think 40 is the pass mark. 39 is the marginal fail. It's important because you can see that in here, under the strengths and weaknesses, it says for this particular student, there is evidence of his or her work to be of some good research and analysis. See, even with good research and analysis, you still could get a fail. Why? But, read on, okay? But your footnoting and sourcing is appalling. That means the way that this particular student footnotes, the format that this particular student has applied to do the footnoting, the place where the student direct the reader to the source, which could be the footnote as well as the bibliography, is appalling. Okay, so what I've talked about earlier, they're all relevant. And in here, read further, it says there are only 25 footnotes and many of them do not make sense. Example, footnote 14 says, see footnote 14. What does this mean? Okay, here it tells you two more things. One is the number of footnotes that this particular student has applied. Is there a de minimis? It would appear yes. Okay, so for a Hong Kong constitutional assignment, if you're going to put down 25 footnotes, and this particular first marker You see, it's DG. I believe you can guess who that particular person is, who's more than likely going to mark your paper. If you're going to have 25 footnotes, you will be deemed not sufficiently researching into your sources. Okay. Number two is, I always give the student the benefit of doubt. Okay. Here it says when the particular student put down footnote 14 and says see footnote 14, maybe the student has mistakenly put down footnote 14 there. You should have said see footnote 12 or 5 or 4. Okay, so that tells you one very important thing when you do the footnoting. Always check the accuracy of the footnote. I know you are pressurized, and this is important because you must check the accuracy of the footnoting, because that is the way to tell the examiner this is the direction of the source, and if you want to go into it, you can find it. And if you want to go for the full site directory, you check out my bibliography. Okay, and that also gives you another observation here. If you say in footnote 14, you say see footnote 14, that is already an incorrect way of referencing to another footnote. Okay, let's say this particular student was actually giving him or her the benefit of doubt, was actually trying to refer to footnote 4. If you just put down see footnote 4, that is already not correct in terms of the way that you do citation presentation. Because if you go for the OSCOLA citation system, it will tell you how you should refer to earlier footnotes. Okay, if the footnote is above, if the footnote that you're referring now, let's say footnote 14 is actually referring to the same source as footnote 13, you have to use the italic like I bid. And then you put down the page number, you put down perhaps paragraph number. That is a specific jargon when you do citation. That's why I urge all of you to find out, number one, which citation system you're going to use. Number two, familiarize yourself with the citation system if you have to refer to footnoting. Okay, and don't commit the same mistake as this student. Because think about it, okay, this is a student who might have 40 marks before and now ended up with 38 marks. 40 marks could have been a pass for this student. Likewise, you might be a first-class student, marginal first-class student, or marginal 2-1 or 2-2 student. And because of this lousy footnoting, you might drop one grade down. Imagine all the hard work that you've done. You could have earned a first-class honor, you could have done a 2-1, you could have done 2-2, but then you fell down to from first to 2-1, 2-1 to 2-2, 2-2 to a third to a pass. That would not do you justice, just simply because you do a lousy footnoting. Okay, that's why I urge all of you, when you do footnoting, accuracy is important. It's not only the spell check that you have to do, it's the accuracy of the footnoting that you must check as well. Imagine footnoting is important because when you go up to the academic world, this is a way to highlight or to showcase your capability. And likewise, when you argue your case at court, when you want to quote something, you have to quote that precisely. And that discipline of quoting things precisely is something that should be a second nature to a lawyer, whether you're academic, whether you are in professional career. Okay? All right, next. Any question? Okay, I'll move on to this one. And I put out here as a serious plagiarism and it's a ground to fail you if you footnote something that you have not read. I highlight once again, because this is so important, because these are examples that I've seen time and time again that students, when they do plagiarism, this is one of the common errors that they have made. Okay? Likewise, for the bibliography. And point number 3 is important. It may not be so apparent, but let's see how you can take it. Okay? I'm going to illustrate with an example afterwards. So let's say if you have two authors. Author A wrote an original article, so which is the author of the original source. And author B look at this original source and say, great, I'm going to give credit to this author A because I want to use his or her idea. So in author B's written work, author B would have a footnote there to cite the author A's work, as well as a Mirror Brother entry in the bibliography. Now, when you, the third person, read this author B, should you quote the source, the original source in your citation, or should you cite the secondary source as really the source that you have used to refer to the original source? That is a very tricky question. Okay? Come again. Author A wrote something in his book, that's the original source. Author B referred to that original source of author A, put down a citation there, acknowledging author A's work, bibliography entry as well. When you, as the author who look at author B's work, would you jump, if you are going to use the original thoughts, okay, would you quote in your citation the original author A original source, or would you put down author B's secondary source? I would urge all of you in this situation, ask yourself the question, am I able to get the original source? If you are able to get the original source, go and get it and read it yourself. And feel free to quote in your citation the original author A as the author of that source. Likewise, a bibliography entry. Okay? But in a situation which could be possible, I have encountered a case where the original source was written at a time when the author B could have read it. But then subsequently, the manuscript of the author A, which is the original source, was burned, was damaged. And it was no longer possible for any subsequent authors to refer to that particular original source. So you, as an author of your own work, definitely, unless you can go back in time, you will not be able to access the original source. In that particular case, there is a specific way that you acknowledge your citation where you obtain the source from. Okay, I'm going to mention that in the next slide. And anything that you think is interesting in the original source, and if you can locate it, by all means locate it. There is a danger to pretend that you have you have looked at the secondary source, and then you pretend that you've read the original source, and you put down in a citation that you have read the original source. Why? Because let's say author B might have read author A's work, but the part that author B was discussing was only part of what author A has written. And in actual fact, author A would have other topics relating to that and would have limitations as well. But those limitations and other topics will not be relevant to author B. And when it comes to your case, okay, you have read author B, but you have not read the whole limitations, the other topics in author A's original work. But those limitations might have applied to you as well. By simply quoting that you've read author A's work, you might come up and write something that if someone would have read author A's work, you would be bound by those limitations, and you would not be writing it in such a way. So the examiner will spot that. Examiner will know that, okay, you said you have read author A's work. How come you have not spotted that limitation, because Author A will have discussed that, Author A will have done all this analysis, and you are doing something similar to what Author A did. Why did you not pick that up? So there's one of the possible explanation is you have picked up the original source from a secondary source and you pretended that you have read the original source. But in fact, you did not. And remember, you did not quote in your citation or in your footnote as a citation or make an entry in the bibliography for things that you have not read, and that would be called for plagiarism too. Okay, so how does it work? How can you protect yourself? I'm going to give you an example, and that would help you materialize the whole concept in a clearer way, okay, hopefully. Now imagine you are reading this Author B's work. Author B is a learned writer in international commercial arbitration. And you look at that, you said, okay, it says it has been said by a well-known arbitrator that the best course for an arbitral tribunal to take is blah, blah, blah. This enables the party to know where they stand at a relatively early stage. Okay? Now you can see that this second source, Author B, was quoting someone's source because it has got a quotation there. So Author B has adequately acknowledged the source because if you look at the footnote, it says the Author A original source is by the author Jarvan S. from the JurisNet, second edition, 2008, page 102, in the article called Objections to Jurisdiction in that particular book, Leading Arbitrator's Guide to International Arbitration. So this Author B is fine. Now for you, what should you do? If you really want to quote the same thing, number one, I have explained to you, go into S. Jarvan's work, read that. If you cannot get hold of S. Jarvan's work because the manuscript is not there, okay, or because for whatever reason, then you do the next slide. All right? What you have to do is you enter into your footnote. You still quote the original source there. You put S. Jarvan, blah, 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 Leading Arbitrator's Guide to International Arbitration, second edition, JurisNet 208, okay? And then you put a comma there, page 102 and comma, as quoted by Simon Greenberg, Christopher Key, Romesh Riaramentry, CUP 2012, page 211. That way, you protected yourself. That way, you're telling the examiner that you know you have actually obtained the source from the Author B because you have difficulty obtaining Author A's work. All right? And in the bibliography, because you actually read Author B's work. So bibliography would be Author B's title. You put that down, Simon Greenberg, which is the Author B's work in the bibliography. Okay? You get the point? Now, again, do not cite any source that you have not read. And if you need to rely on any secondary source, use the above citation presentation method, okay? But at all times, go for the primary source because you'll be surprised how often the original author would have covered things that would be relevant to you, but the secondary author, because it is not relevant to him or her, would not have covered in his or her work, which could be relevant to you and which you should have picked up, okay? I will urge you to go for the primary source if you can, at all times. If not, do the citation in this way, okay? Any question? This is rather convoluted. I hope the presentation can help you understand more, all right? Now, next, it's supposed to be a video which I got from the MMU, but I'm aware that for this Adobe Connect system, it is difficult to play videos because of the bandwidth problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut and paste this link. Bear with me. Okay, now this particular link, I would urge you to watch it whenever you get a chance. This is a link of the MMU, and it basically tells you in brief the plagiarism idea, and it should be something that you can help you consolidate the concept that you have gone through this evening, help you cover some of the key ingredients of it. So I will urge you during your pastime, when you have a chance, during lunchtime, evening, have a look at that. Okay. I would also now want to share with you another example. It's good to demonstrate by examples because you can learn more. Now, this is an example where a student was found to have lied. And let me draw your attention to the strengths and weaknesses. It says this particular student's work is very poor and sloppy, okay? And the student has clearly spent very little time researching this, and his or her citation of cases is supporting. So the quality of the citation, very important, highlight again, okay? You don't want the examiner to say your citation is supporting. And that's why you have to refer to the OSCOLA citation system, learn it well, and do it in the academically recognized way. In here, it says the student's bibliography contains 2 untrue statements, claiming that he or she found them in LexisNexis when those versions are not available there. And the student has clearly never read the Leung Kwok Hong case, the Chang Mo case, since the student has cited the wrong court in describing the case. Okay, in a nutshell, what it says is the student put down in the bibliography things that are not true. So that's why I asked you to check the accuracy. Here, the student said, I actually went to the LexisNexis and I obtained all these versions. This particular examiner was a very studious examiner, and the examiner went into LexisNexis and checked and found that there was no such statements in the digital system available. So number 1, fabrication of information of the source, or student would have proclaimed that they have read something, but they have not read. Okay. Number 2, the student never read the case because the student was quoting, in this particular case, a lower court where the case was originally heard. But that particular case number that the student quoted was actually supposed to be the Court of Final Appeal. So by not checking accurately your cross-referencing, you might also end up getting this plagiarism acquisition as well. So think about it. This particular student might have simply did not check the right, well, simply must have made some mistaken typing. Rather than putting CFA, the student put down High Court. Okay, that could be possible. But then the examiner would not be there just to listen to that particular argument. Think about it. Why did the student put down something that he said or she said is in LexisNexis whereas they are not there? So there are more circumstantial evidence to substantiate the fact that this student actually lied. And I remember this particular case that the student got a very serious reprimand at the end and also a 0 mark as well. Okay, it is not worth trying it. Okay, I could not remember whether the student got suspended or not. Okay, but definitely what a 0 mark could have done to you in your future studies is detrimental. All right, you don't want to commit that mistake. Okay, and why do we want to protect everyone? And why do we want you to also uphold this concept of doing your research and adhering to the compliance against plagiarism? Okay, it's important because think about it. You have worked all this way for your academic qualification. You have spent so much work, and after a whole day's work, you come here, you sacrifice all your holidays, sacrifice all your time with your relatives, whatever, and you want to get an academic qualification that is well respected everywhere. You want your MMU CPE to be recognized. If you want to do your top-up LLB, you want that to be strongly recognized. And if you are going further, if you want to do your PCLL, you want the 3 teaching universities to pay a substantial weight in the quality of your education. That is important. And if you want to go further in academic world, when people look at an MMU degree, you want them to respect that. Likewise, for your forthcoming employers, for your current employers, for whatever you want to do, you want your qualification to be recognized. And that's the reason why you must protect the integrity of your qualification. And students who plagiarize are doing nothing but harming the reputation of the course. And in a way, they are jeopardizing your chance as well, because you don't want people who plagiarize to be let go. You don't want people to say outside that MMU degree, people can plagiarize and still get very good scores. So we should really not pay high respect for this qualification. And that's why the university is very insistent on a 0 tolerance level on plagiarism. Likewise, for you, you have worked so hard, you must protect it, you must protect your qualification. You don't want someone to submit an application to the PCLL where that person would stand the same chance or higher chance than you because the person has got through with good marks like you and did plagiarize. That's not fair to you. That's not fair to all the other conscientious students. Okay, so you should also protect that too in your own personal interest. And every year, through this tutorial, through different communications from the MMU to my students, students know what to do and what not to do. Okay, they learn about what the pitfalls are and they don't fall into it. And also, I have to thank some of the students on behalf of the university that they have submitted reports of plagiarism by other students. And that led to investigation, and that led to subsequent disciplinary action to protect the integrity of the qualification, as well as in the best interest of yourself, to uphold your long-standing of what you've got after all these years of hard work. So in a way, don't tolerate plagiarism. Okay? Never tolerate it because it's unfair to you, it's unfair to everyone, and the majority of you, the most, I would say, most majority of you are honest students, are conscientious students, that you should not be jeopardized because someone plagiarized. So report that if you come across any sort of attempts by others. Okay? Now, in a way, there are 2 major ways that plagiarism will be caught. As you are aware, all of your assignments that you've submitted through the Moodle system will have to go through this anti-plagiarism software called Turnitin. I can reassure you that 99% of the universities abroad and 100% of all the universities in Hong Kong, they engage plagiarism software like Turnitin. And works of all the other students abroad, work of academic research work will have gone into the system. Okay, your friends' work abroad will have also gone into the system because before they assess, all these universities will have required them to do so. And also think about it. Some of the professors, some of the academic writers, they also voluntarily submit their work into Turnitin because they want to put a record there. They want to put a record there so that if anyone attempts to copy their work without adequately acknowledging it, those offenders will be caught for plagiarism as well. So think about it. It is not worth doing so because it is more likely than not that if you do not properly adequately acknowledge someone's sources, you will be caught. And you can see from the table on the top right-hand corner, I've put down different color schemes. Blue stands for you have no match in the words, or this is not only words, it could be the context of it. The Turnitin system is very smart. You might change the phrase, you might change the semantics of it, but Turnitin is smart enough to figure out that semantics means those words. Okay, so beware. Blue means you have one word or 24% of your submission have a match with others. Yellow, 25 to 49%, orange, 50 to 74%, and red, 75 to 100%. Now, some students ask me, which color should I fall into? Now, there's no hard and fast rule. Why? Let's say, imagine you are doing something that's very original, and no one has ever done it. And when you submit the work into Turnitin, if you are really the original author, okay, that should be a blue. Most of the chance, or at least a green, okay. Because it's so original, no one has actually produced it. But sometimes you might refer to other people's work. But if everything is original, it should be blue or green. Now, think about in other circumstances. Some student might come across some judgments, and they want to use, let's say, the exact wordings, the exact expression of Lord Wilberforce or Lord Dannings in a particular judgment. Okay, you would want to use everything and quote it verbatim. So what do? Remember what you do? Put that down in quotation. Do a footnote. Immediately do a Mirror Brother entry in the bibliography. All right, then you are home and dry. Now, some students also ask me, then I'm fine. I can just do copy and paste, keep on doing my acknowledgement, adequate acknowledgement. I will do well. That is very far-fetched thoughts. Think about it. At the end of the day, if you are aware of the MMU marking system, copy and paste work, even with full acknowledgement, you just pass the Turnitin anti-plagiarism test. But that will not gain you very far from the marks, because most of the marks come from your analysis of other people's work. Most of the marks come from how you put forward your argument by basing on information that you've obtained. It could be primary source, it could be secondary source, and then you elaborate further so that you can apply the law to the facts of the case, come to a conclusion, and then present it to your teacher. All right? That is how you get the extra marks to make you a higher grade. Okay, but just simply copy and paste work will not gain you too far. Okay, now I will now point you to look at the bottom part of this particular slide. I'm sorry for the small words, but I want to put down everything there because Danny has kindly shared with me this particular source. It is actually about a particular student who wrote in, very kind student who wrote in to report about a cheating incident on the Hong Kong Constitutional Law assignment in CPE Year 2 course, which is in your year, okay, Year 2. Now it says to Danny, subject matter, cheating on Hong Kong Constitutional Law assignment in CPE Year 2 course. Dear Danny, let me read to you because it's so small, okay. Mr. X has directly copied the assignment. To put it simply, Mr. X has not done any research on the topic, as is the requirement and objective of the Hong Kong Constitutional Law assignment. In order to protect the integrity and fairness of the whole CPE course, I do hope that you can make an investigation of Mr. X's assignment. Okay, remember, protect the integrity, protect the fairness, and then we have to investigate. As a remember from your class, CPE students should maintain the reputation of CPE course, as I've just put forward to all of you earlier. You have to maintain that because that is also in your best interest. That is there to protect the quality of our qualification. If Mr. X can get a PCLL offer by cheating, it may damage the reputation of the CPE in the legal field. Best regards, the student. Okay, this is a very righteous student, and I remember this particular case get a serious repercussion effect. All right, don't commit plagiarism, but protect yourself. If you see students attempting to do so, report it. It will be in your best interest to do so because more likely than not, if you're going to apply to PCLL, that students, if he or she can get by with plagiarism and get a mark equal or better than you, that would jeopardize your chance too. Likewise, maybe to apply for another university to do further studies, or maybe to apply for a job. Okay, the person who cheated and did plagiarism have a higher academic qualification than you. It is not fair, simply not fair, and should not be encouraged and should be reported. Okay. Now, after all this, I hope I'm not just painting the gloom and doom picture to you. Why? Because the majority of you, 99% of you, are honest, law-abiding citizens. Okay? So don't worry about it. You are honest students. If you have gone through all this plagiarism training, you know the pitfalls. You know if you have done the two-limb test, you won't make any sort of mistakes that other people who have not gone through this tutorial might have made. Through my years of experience, students, when they attended the disciplinary committee or when they wrote in to explain their reasons, some of them would say, I did not intend to do that. Okay, remember, this is not a criminal case. Whether you have the intention to commit plagiarism or not is not relevant. The intention to cheat or not is not relevant, because this is what we term an academic misconduct. This is what we termed an academic theft. So whether intention or not would be plagiarism. If you cheat, if you did not adequately acknowledge the source when you actually refer to other people's work. And some students will say, I am ignorant of the law, or I'm ignorant of the rules of the plagiarism. That is never a defense, because from the very beginning, you have got information, communications from MMU, administration, teachers, and also through this particular specific tutorial, you've learned about what not to do and what precautionary measures to help you stay away from this trap. And those are quite simple if you follow the rules, if you follow the two-limb test well. Okay, and the vast majority of you, nothing to worry about if you attach to those rules. Just follow the two-limb test, adequately acknowledge the source, whether primary or secondary, and remember the particular rules I mentioned earlier. If you cannot access the primary source, how you refer to the secondary source in a specific way. Okay? And after you've done all this, there's no reason for you to be suspected of plagiarism. Okay? Finally, I would like to ask you to look at all these links if you have time. Now, in the materials that you've got for the tutorial, I think there's a thick pack of it. Danny has asked for you to look at the Hong Kong U guide in the notes, okay, the descriptive part. That is why I urge you to chat with Danny or any of the academic tutors, any of the academic teachers, okay. When they ask you to do some sort of written assignment, what sort of citation system you are being asked to look at. Ask for the forthcoming March submission of the Hong Kong law, constitutional law assignment. Ask Danny. Would Danny prefer you to use the Hong Kong University citation system, or would Danny prefer you to use the OSCOLA citation system, or would Danny be indifferent between these two? I would think that he would insist on one, okay, or maybe Danny would at least insist on a proper citation system. I would have to say that. Whether it's a Hong Kong one or whether it's the OSCOLA system, double check with him. Okay, but for MMU, a lot of the teachers, they would insist on, let's say, for the UK European law, for TOEFL, for all this, the UK examiners, the UK teachers, most of them, because it's a UK context submission, they would insist on the OSCOLA citation system, which now is the 4th edition, 2012 edition. Okay, so go to the website and search for it. And there is also one thing I can spare with you, a tip for you, that there is a quick reference guide, a separate leaflet. You must at least read the separate leaflet, because that will give you the basic tools to do your citation in the footnote. But sometimes you might come across difficult way to properly cite things. Then I would urge all of you to also look at the official OSCOLA version of the citation guide. If you don't have time, flip through that. At least you feel conversant with it, okay? So that when you come across something that you think is difficult, if the quick reference guide does not help you, go to the official guide of the OSCOLA citation system, okay? And then lastly, okay, it's nothing more important to re-emphasize again that plagiarism is a serious and disciplinary offense. And please do not tolerate, report it if you see someone doing it. Okay? Anyone having any questions? All right, if let me get back to the camera. Good. I hope this tutorial can give you all the fundamental tools that you need to avoid the plagiarism trap. And this is something that you must learn, because you will need to do that in subsequent path. Okay. And it is important that whenever you quote someone's work, you must adequately acknowledge that. Now, for this particular session, if you have no further question, that will be the end of it. And for the next tutorial, it is going to be a very, very intensive topic. So I will urge all of you, if you can, okay, I will urge you that you should go through the question and read through some of the notes that you've made during your class. Try to attempt that question. You don't have to write something in full, just write down some bullet points, okay? Because next topic is going to be very, very substantive, and it will be going through at quite a fast pace. So I hope you have done some background reading. Do a fair attempt of it. And when you come here, that would be the second time to deal with the question, and that would help you consolidate your knowledge, okay? And that would help you learn more. And at the end of the day, when you prepare for the revision of your course, that would be easier because you have gone through at least 2 times of attempting this particular difficult topic, all right? So if you have any questions, just put it down at the chat box. And if not, that would be the end of tonight's session. So good evening to all of you. Thank you for attending. Goodbye. Welcome.